Going to talk today about loading density and some other aspects. The reason being is because some of the latest so-called developments in cartridges that are being brought out here, they're trying to hang their hat on to loading density. And there doesn't seem to be any discussion or talk about any other aspects other than loading density and or high ballistics coefficient bullets. Now we're going to point towards loading density first. I've been very aware of loading density from the beginning of my reloading career and eventually becoming a master hand loader. I have powders of almost every manufacturer, the latest powders, some earlier powders, and powders in between. And over the years, with my extensive gun making, I have loaded not for 1, 2, or 3, or 4 different rifles that I build in a certain cartridge, but in some instances many, many hundreds of rifles built for a certain chambering. And in that process of things, I've always and continue to use every available powder that makes sense for a particular cartridge bullet combination. Now, I'm going to explain something here. Loading density is an important thing. It's a good thing. But there are other factors that are involved in that whole aspect of loading density. Just because we have the loading density does not mean that that powder is going to turn up the type of velocities that the certain capacity case is capable of. Some powders have more energy to produce more velocity per grain weight of powder than other powders. It's always been this way. It's not going to change. Some powders just simply may have just the loading density, but they just don't give you the type of velocities. And this is really where we're at, and this is part of the discussion. I'm going to indicate here a certain cartridge, 7mm PRC. Now this PRC stands for precision rifle cartridge. Now there's a lot more things involved with precision than just loading density. It's using the very best rifle barrels, not just any rifle barrel, and many other factors. Along with the loading density, we have to have tight standard deviations in our velocities to get accuracy. If we don't have tight standard deviations, these things are pretty much kind of canceled out. Now, I'm very, very dubious of one aspect here. Make all these claims to do with this so-called better cartridge because it's loaded with factory ammunition this way and that way and some other way, and concentrating on loading density. But there's not one damn mention to do with the real accuracy. Now, we have a tremendous amount of different rifle barrel makers. I've used pretty much just about everybody's rifle barrel that's come down the pike. There's a lot of good barrels. Then there's a lot of very good barrels, And then there's just a few very excellent barrels as far as specific barrel makers go. And as you've heard in some of my conversations before, I, as a rule, use Hart rifle barrels. Now, not everybody uses Hart rifle barrels. Not everybody uses Bartlein barrels. That's a cut rifle barrel. I find it's a very accurate barrel. However, when it comes right down to it, because of all aspects involved, I, as a rule, use Hart rifle barrels. My rifles, when I build rifles, I expect them to shoot. Now, just because you bought this wonderful so-called ammunition to shoot it in just any old rifle made by any manufacturer does not mean that you have a precision rifle combination as far as accuracy goes with the ammunition. Now, this PRC thing has been adopted as a gimmick selling point, and I don't particularly buy into it. Especially when we come up with all sorts of different abbreviations. Abbreviations seem to be the trick thing anymore. I don't buy into abbreviations. Now, we've had a few write-ups, and we're all excited about loading density, and we're all excited about a specific bullet or several different bullets and ballistics coefficient. But there's a lot of area here to prove itself out. That is, let's say that there's a half a dozen different rifle manufacturers that are chambering for this particular cartridge, and everybody and his brother's using a different barrel, a different manufacturer, different make barrel. And are the reamers the same? Now here's another aspect. We've got SAMI thrown into this whole aspect of things, which basically this is, designated as a SAMI, accepted cartridge. So what? You see, now we're getting off into a whole nother area here. We have a tremendous amount of different types of bullets. We've got bullets that have got lead tips. We've got bullets that have got plastic tips. We've got bullets that are made of homogeneous material, all copper or all gilding metal jacketed type of bullets. We've got gilding metal jacketed bullets, and so forth. Now, not every barrel likes every bullet that's made. So there's no way to tell, especially at this point in time, if this is really the great thing that it's supposed to be, because there hasn't been enough time out here to prove this out. But we've got big broad statements made. It's better than this, and it's better than that, and it's better than something else. Well, those something else's have been around for maybe 60 years, maybe longer, maybe 75 years, maybe longer. You see, there's been a lot of different cartridges made for different case capacities. Now we've got powders that are available for just about any case capacity that's acceptable for any bore size. But narrowing this down to just one situation here, that this is the best thing to come down the pike, is a pretty broad statement. This is a little bit premature. I think that we have to give this some time. Especially give it some time because we're trying to sell it to do with factory ammunition. We can just go buy factory ammunition. Well, is this going to prove out that this particular situation has the accuracy that people are looking for? For years and years and years and years, we had people looking for sub-minute of angle groups with their rifle. Anymore, we've got people that are looking for sub-half minute of angle, and for a long time it's been this way. Now, I've had the opportunity with just about everything that's come around to have had the opportunity to test various ammunition for various chamberings in numerous rifles, and this ammunition is designated as select or premium or the latest gee whiz thing or whatever it is, you know, just because it's loaded with particularly an ELDX bullet or whatever it might happen to be, or a CX bullet, or, you know, a GMX bullet, or whatever it might happen to be. You see, or an AccuBond bullet, or a long-range AccuBond bullet. Well, there's a lot of pretty good bullets in that whole lineup of things. But not every bullet is going to shoot in every rifle, and not every rifle is going to shoot that off-the-shelf factory ammunition. I know, because I have shot some of these things that are designated to be, you know, precision ammunition. Well, there's various aspects to do with precision. It's loaded with very well-made cases, very well-made bullets. They're made precisionally. The powder charges are weighed precisionally. The primers are made precisionally. We've got precision chronographs that chronographs these things. But lo and behold, one of the things that I find that stands out is that we don't have the type of standard deviations with a lot of this so-called ammunition for these wonderful gee whiz cartridges. Now, the ammunition that you're going to use is only as good as it is capable of. It's not capable of doing anything better than what it is. And this is where it comes down to the hand loading aspect. There's never going to be one of these combinations come out here that's going to be the greatest thing that's ever happened. And all we got to do is buy that ammunition, and bingo, it's always going to shoot sub-half minute of angle groups. It just doesn't happen this way, folks. I know. I worked up loads for literally thousands and thousands of rifles, fired millions of rounds of ammunition, used all sorts of different combinations, the correct powders for the application, and I quick find out when some of these things are stated if this particular powder is up to the task. And I've stated in a past video that many years ago, when the 7 Remington Magnum finally came out as a legitimate round of factory ammunition in Remington 700s, that DuPont developed IMR 7828. Well, it took 20 some odd years, over 20 some odd years, for that powder to become available in canister form so that the public could buy that powder. And I have shot more different chamberings in 7mm than I think anybody else out here. Because early on, I had an interest in 7mm, starting with the 7 Remington Magnum. And I soon found out that, you know, the rifle, the SAMU-spec chamber, was not the way to go. This is another aspect. Oh, we don't want to re-throat anything. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. We don't want to get off of SAMU specifications and all this other stuff. Well, it's been done since the beginning of reloading. hand loading, in hand loading for accuracy. Now, we've got designations on overall cartridge length. This has always been a very questionable situation because everybody anymore, they've changed the entire game with the profile and the style of the bullets, the load drag, you know, different type of ogive bullets with plastic tips. This changes overall cartridge length, you know, sometimes over 150 thousandths, just because of the added plastic tip to the bullet. And this changes the relationship of the actual bullet, the bearing surface of the bullet, and the ogive relationship to the throat and the chamber of the rifle. All these things play into this. But nobody wants to talk about all of these things. They just want to talk about high ballistics coefficient and we can buy factory ammunition. Oh boy, oh boy. You know, I've sold my rifles for years and years and years because they're accurate rifles. I don't think that I would ever went anywhere very well with just building a rifle and handing it off to the customer without proving the accuracy of the rifle. This is why I work up precision loads for every individual rifle when I have a rifle order. And if the guy just doesn't want it, I don't do it because he really doesn't care. But I care. I give a damn. I know what accuracy is about. I know how to get accuracy. I know how to wring every bullet out. I know how to wring every powder out in every rifle to find out exactly what will happen. And all these things have got to be proven. But to come out with this latest, you know, hype that it's the greatest thing that there is, just tell you it's the greatest thing that there is, you see, it just doesn't work that way. There's no such a thing as a free lunch here. And this is what's happened to this whole situation. We've got completely off a track. We've got very capable writers writing about something, but invariably, the greatest share of the articles that are written by any of these people are not in-depth, full tests like I've done for my entire lifetime. And I do all the time. And it takes a lot of hours away from my day and everything else to be able to find days when wind isn't blowing to work up loads. And I might sit here for weeks on end, maybe almost a month on end, to be able to get a day when the wind isn't blowing, to be able to test. But the rifle sits here until I'm able to make those tests. And when I find, finally, what's working, the loads are going to have good, close standard deviations, in most instances in the single digit area. I happen to have situations where in the course of a year, I might find 10 different rifles that I've worked up a load for in different calibers and so forth. And I might have standard deviation of 1 or 2. It isn't just a fluke, folks. It's exactly what it is. You know, a standard deviation of 1. That's probably because the velocity spread of 3 shots was either 1 or 2 feet per second, or perhaps 3 feet per second. That's how you get close standard deviations. So unless this ammunition that's being produced for these so-called wonderful precision situations, unless it produces good standard deviations, and it can do it consistently, it's hype. If it's doing it, and it's doing it consistently, then it's not hype. It's real. It's a real situation. But I know better. There's instances where I or the customer has spent $75, $100 or more dollars for a box of ammunition, and I've had situations where the velocity spread of these so-called premium ammunitions, select ammunition, or whatever you want to call it, the velocity spreads are 40, 50, 60, 70 feet a second. You're not going to get accuracy at 100 yards, and you're sure as hell not going to get it at 300 or 400 yards or further, because you can't have these broad velocity situations and expect to have accuracy. It just doesn't happen. And this is why we have to work with all these things. I could get a handful of 30 caliber barrels in here from Hart, all made consecutively, one right after the other, that all check out by Jim Hart of being all within 1/10,000th of one another, and no variation from end to end in the groove diameter of the barrel, because his barrels, brother, are perfect. They're simply perfect. There's not a better barrel. It's just a perfect barrel. I know. But I'll have to, when I've worked up loads for these 5 different barrels put on different rifles, every barrel, even though everything is made exactly the same, done exactly the same procedures and everything else, every barrel has its own likes and dislikes, its own harmonics and everything else. They are fully stress-relieved, heat-treated barrels, and they're absolutely as uniform as a barrel can be made. There's not anything more precision that goes into the rifle than that barrel. Made by Jim Hart at Hart Rifle Barrels. You know, Hart Barrels has been around for many, many years, and, you know, many of the barrel makers over the years studied and maybe worked for Hart and learned how to make barrels, and they went off over years later to make barrels themselves. One of the cases in point was the late Ed Shilan. Ed Shilan learned how to make barrels there and others. And we've got everybody out here in this whole barrel making aspect that have started up their own barrel making business and selling barrels. But unless you know how to check a barrel, unless you know how to measure a barrel and one thing and another, you don't know what you're getting. And you don't have to check any of Jim Hart's barrels because they're perfect. They're perfect. And they're very proud of their product. They make a very wonderful barrel. And I'm going to say that the only barrel that I have stuck to for so many years, and will, as long as they're made and as long as I'm building rifles, I will be using Hart barrels. I'm not paid to tell you this. I'm telling you this because it's the honest truth of what really is going on out here. And these are the things that's left out. It's real disappointing to see some of these decently written articles, but so much of the information is just simply left out. And part of the reason that information is left out because these people that are writing these articles aren't in-depth, capable people such as myself. I can talk about any aspect of it. I can manufacture these things myself if I had the time, the money, and everything else. Because I have the understanding, the ability, and the know-how from my lifetime of working in this field and as a tool and die maker. I know how these things are done. Now, years ago, we had people that had this hands-on experience. Brother, I have the hands-on experience. I can tell you what, my wife can tell you the amount of time that I spend on something and what I do, because I almost invariably show her all these. She gets to see these many hundreds, if not thousands, of groups that I've shot with various rifles that I build. And I want people to be happy with what they get. And this is why I do this. And I'm an incessant experimenter. I love to shoot. I love to hunt. And I want accuracy. I want accuracy above all. So this is what it's about.